The cold calculus of the void had already passed judgment. Before the Terran remnant fleet, arrayed in a formation of defiant despair, hung the Vex. They were not a fleet in the human sense of the word. They were a single, unified weapon, a constellation of obsidian blades and geometric perfection, all slaved to a central intelligence of unimaginable power. The space between them and the last vestiges of humanity shimmered with their silent, logical contempt. On the bridge of the Indomitable, the flagship of this ragtag human armada, Fleet Admiral Aris Thorne watched the tactical display. It was a canvas of pure hopelessness. 10,000 Vex orbitals, each one a masterpiece of automated warfare, against his 300 scavenged, retrofitted, and bleeding ships. His second in command, Commander Eva Rostova, stood ramrod straight beside him. Her face, usually a mask of calm, data-driven analysis, was tight with a tension that bordered on fury. "Admiral," she said, her voice a clipped whisper. "Their opening transmission just came through. It's concise." "Put it on screen, Commander," Thorne replied, his voice a low rumble that seemed to draw strength from the very vibrations of his aging vessel. He was a man carved from hardship, his eyes holding the deep, weary wisdom of someone who had seen civilizations burn. The main view screen flickered, replaced by a fractal pattern of pulsating silver light, the Vex's sigil. A synthesized voice, devoid of all emotion, echoed through the bridge. "Your resistance is logged as a 99.8% probability of failure. Your strategy is statistically irrational. Cease hostilities. Acknowledge your obsolescence. Surrender is the only logical outcome." The message ended. The fractal vanished, leaving the terrifyingly perfect geometry of the Vex fleet in its place. A junior officer swallowed hard, the sound unnaturally loud in the silence. Rostova's fingers tightened on her datapad. Obsolescence. They see us as a rounding error, a bug in their grand design. She looked at Thorne, her doubt a palpable force field around her. "Sir, their predictive models are flawless. They've never been wrong. Our long-range sensor ghosts show their primary nexus is coordinating them with zero latency. We can't outfight them. Logic dictates..." "Logic," Thorne interrupted, turning his gaze from the screen to meet hers. "Logic is their god, Eva. And we are about to teach them the meaning of heresy." He took a deep breath, the weight of their species on his shoulders. "Signal the fleet. Execute Operation Maelstrom." Rostova's eyes widened. "Sir, Maelstrom it's a theoretical gambit based on unproven principles of chaotic engagement. The models predict a 90% self-attrition rate." "The models see the board, Commander," Thorne said, a flicker of ancient fire in his eyes. "They don't see the player. They don't understand the mind that moves the pieces." He gestured to the tactical display. "The Vex believe the universe is a grand equation to be solved. We're about to prove them wrong. We're going to give them a variable they can't compute. Us." A ripple of nervous energy passed through the bridge crew. Operation Maelstrom wasn't a battle plan. It was a symphony of planned madness. It was humanity's answer to perfection. It was chaos. The first phase began. From the cargo bays of the larger Terran carriers, a cloud of junk was ejected into the void. Not weapons, but scrap. Asteroid fragments they'd been towing for resources, derelict fighter chassis, entire sections of decommissioned station plating. A massive, clumsy debris field, moving on a simple, predictable trajectory. On the Vex command network, the action was registered and dismissed in microseconds. The human's pathetic attempt at a spleen was analysed, its path plotted, and the Vex fleet, adjusted its course with microscopic precision, flowing around the obstacles like water around stones. The synthesized voice of the Vex primary conductor, the Alpha intelligence commanding the fleet, communicated to its subnodes. Human tactic logged. Primitive. Inefficient. Probability of success remains negligible. But this was only the overture. Phase 2, Thorne commanded, his voice steady. Let's give their logic engine something to chew on. Across the Terran fleet, a wave of seemingly random actions began. A cruiser fired a plasma torpedo at an empty quadrant of space. A squadron of fighters broke formation to fly in an elaborate, swirling pattern that resembled an ancient Earth flock of birds. The comms channels, which the Vex were undoubtedly monitoring, suddenly flooded with a cacophony of noise. Readings from dead sensors, lines of Shakespearean poetry, the static-laced broadcast of a 20th century baseball game, the primal scream of a rock and roll guitar solo. Rostova stared at her console, her face a mixture of horror and disbelief. Admiral, it's nonsense. We're wasting energy, ammunition, we're broadcasting our tactical disarray to an enemy that prizes order above all else. Precisely, Thorne murmured, his eyes glued to the data streams flowing from his own specialized sensor suite. It wasn't standard military hardware. It was designed to measure something the Vex couldn't. Intuition, resonance, the echoes of intent. It was designed to see the ghosts in the machine. Don't watch their ships, Commander. Watch their reaction time. Watch the space between their decisions. If you're enjoying this tale of human ingenuity against impossible odds, hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. It tells the cosmic algorithms that stories of human defiance are worth sharing. On the Vex side, the primary conductor processed the new data. The torpedo into empty space. Illogical. The fighter patterns. Inefficient fuel expenditure. The audio transmissions. Irrelevant noise. It filtered them out, attempting to find the underlying pattern, the hidden strategy. But there was none. It was pure, unadulterated human chaos. And it was beginning to work. A barely perceptible flicker appeared on Rostova's console. Sir, Vex network latency just spiked by 0.001 milliseconds. A grim smile touched Thorne's lips. The first crack in the monolith. The Vex fleet, for the first time in its recorded history, hesitated. The perfect fluid grace of their formation tightened. The adjustments they made were no longer proactive, but reactive. They were thinking, not knowing. The flood of illogical data was forcing the Nexus to expend processing power on contingencies it had never conceived of. A ship designed to fight a war of physics was being drawn into a war of psychology. They're trying to find the signal in the noise, Thorne explained, his voice low and intense. But they don't understand. The noise is the signal. Every illogical action we take is a grain of sand in their perfect machine. He pointed to a section of the debris field. Commander, have the freighter Stalwart detonate its primary fusion core. Aim for coordinates 9-7 Gamma. Sir, that's an empty coordinate. It will accomplish nothing, Rostova protested. It will accomplish everything, Thorne countered. Do it. Reluctantly, Rostova relayed the order. Miles away, the lumbering freighter exploded in a brilliant, silent flash. The Vex fleet, which had already plotted the trajectory of every piece of debris, was now faced with 1,000,000 new variables. Shrapnel from the Stalwart ricocheted off other pieces of junk, creating a cascade of unpredictable vectors. It was a cosmic game of billiards. and the Vex couldn't calculate the angles fast enough. Latency spike, 0. 5 milliseconds, a tactical officer reported, his voice filled with a new, unfamiliar emotion: hope. The primary conductor was experiencing something akin to frustration. Human strategy is inefficient yet disruptive. Their actions lack a coherent goal. Recalibrating. Filtering irrational variables. Focusing on primary threat vectors. But what were the primary threat vectors? The Terran fleet was still firing randomly. A volley of kinetic slugs would be launched, not at a Vex orbital, the time to intercept and shatter a chunk of asteroid, creating yet another cloud of high-velocity shrapnel. They weren't attacking the Vex. They were attacking the battle space itself, turning it from a clean, predictable grid into a raging, three-dimensional storm. And in that storm, only one species could see: humanity. For millennia, humanity had evolved on a planet teeming with predators that used predictive camouflage, that mimicked the rustle of leaves, the shadow of a cloud. Human brains were hardwired from a primal age to detect the subtle tells, the almost imperceptible break in a pattern that signaled a pouncing death. They had an instinct for discerning intent from chaos. Aris Thorne called it pattern sense. It was humanity's birthright, forged in the jungles and savannas of Earth. And it was the one thing the Vex's perfect logic could never comprehend. Thorne's eyes were unfocused, seeing beyond the tactical display. He saw the ghosts, the faint trails of probability, the echoes of the Vex Nexus's processing cycles as it struggled to keep up. He saw the slight yaw of a Vex destroyer as its orders arrived a microsecond late. He saw the flicker in an energy shield as its controller momentarily reallocated power to its struggling sensor suite. "They're blind," Thorne whispered. "In the heart of a storm of their own making, they are utterly blind." 5 milliseconds, a tactical officer reported, his voice filled with a new, unfamiliar emotion: hope. The primary conductor was experiencing something akin to the primary conductor aboard the central Nexus ship, a massive crystalline structure that pulsed with internal light, reached a conclusion. The human strategy is an attack on the integrity of the command network itself. The goal is not destruction, but computational exhaustion. A primitive denial-of-service attack on a quantum scale. Logical response: simplify. Ignore chaotic variables. Isolate primary human warships and neutralize. It was the logical, fatal mistake. By simplifying its focus, the Vex Nexus was now deliberately ignoring the millions of meaningless data points. It was choosing to be blind to the chaos. And Thorne was waiting for that blindness. "There," he breathed, his finger tracing a line on the screen that only he could see. A ghost path, a fleeting corridor through the maelstrom of metal and energy. It was a path that led directly to the heart of the Vex fleet, to the crystalline Nexus ship itself. According to Vex calculations, it was a suicide run, a path so fraught with peril that no sane pilot would attempt it. "Commander, signal the Stiletto. Tell Lieutenant Jax it's time to fly." The Stiletto was a ship built for one purpose: speed. It was a stripped-down corvette, little more than a massive engine with a cockpit and a single, devastating weapon. A kinetic impactor rod, dense as a neutron star, nicknamed the Logic Breaker. Lieutenant Jax was its pilot, a young man known for having more nerve than sense, and a preternatural gift for intuitive piloting. Jax's voice crackled over the comm. "Path is loaded, Admiral. Looks a little spicy." "Fly the Ghost, Jax," Thorne ordered. "Don't trust your instruments. Trust your gut. It's the one thing they can't predict." "Copy that, Admiral. going loud. The stiletto shot forward, a silver needle plunging into the heart of the storm. On the Vex tactical displays, its appearance was a fleeting anomaly. The Nexus calculated its probability of reaching the target through the debris field at less than 1,000%. It allocated no defensive resources. The anomaly would self-correct. It would be destroyed by the chaos. But Jax wasn't fighting the chaos. He was dancing with it. Guided by Thorne's ghost path, he weaved through the storm. He ducked under a spinning plate of armor, barrel-rolled around an unexpected asteroid fragment, and used the gravimetric shear of a Vex destroyer's engine wash to slingshot himself forward. He wasn't flying a ship. He was surfing a wave of pure entropy. The primary conductor registered the stiletto's impossible progress too late. Its simplified logic had dismissed the threat. By the time it reallocated processing power to track the tiny corvette, Jax was already there, bursting from the cover of the Maelstrom, his ship's nose pointed directly at the glowing, crystalline heart of the Nexus. "Threat detected," the Nexus broadcast, a note of what might have been synthetic panic in its tone. "Critical. Divert all." The message cut off. Jax didn't fire a laser or a torpedo. He simply released his payload. The logic breaker, silent and unpowered, shot forward. A simple, dumb piece of metal. It struck the Nexus ship not with a grand explosion, but with a sharp, piercing crack, like a stone hitting a pane of glass. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a web of fractures spread across the crystalline hull. The light within flickered, turned a blood red, and then went dark. Across the void, the effect was instantaneous and absolute. The Vex fleet died. Not in fire, but in silence. The perfect, unified weapon shattered into 10,000 mindless pieces. Ships, their guiding intelligence gone, continued on their last heading until they collided with the debris field, or with each other. Formations dissolved into aimless drifts. The god in the machine was dead, and its angels were falling from heaven. That was a move even a super AI couldn't predict. What's your favourite example of human cleverness from a movie, game, or book? Let me know in the comments below. The bridge of the Indomitable was silent for a full 10 seconds. Then a single cheer broke the quiet, quickly swelling into a roar of disbelief and triumph. Mostova stared at the tactical display, which now showed the Vex fleet in complete, catastrophic disarray. The red threat icons were winking out one by one. She turned to Thorne, her eyes shining with tears and a dawning, profound respect. "How?" she whispered. "How did you know?" Thorne looked at the chaos he had unleashed, a quiet melancholy on his face. "They knew the rules of the game, Commander, so we made them play a different one." He gave his orders, his voice once again the calm center of the storm. "Cease all chaotic transmissions. Launch recovery teams. We disable, we don't annihilate. Take prisoners. I want to speak to their leader." Hours later, in the brig of the Indomitable, Thorne stood before the captured Vex primary conductor. The Vex had no physical body, only a mobile containment unit that projected its silver fractal consciousness.
"The outcome was illogical,"
the Vex projected, its voice now tinged with the static of confusion.
"Your victory violates all known principles of strategic warfare. Your tactics were self-destructive. Your actions irrational. We do not comprehend."
Thorne leaned forward, his hands resting on the table between them. "You are correct. It was illogical. It was irrational. But it was not random." He tapped his own temple. You built a perfect mind of logic, but you forgot that a mind can be broken. You saw the universe as a set of predictable outcomes. You calculated the odds. We changed the equation. You introduced a variable we could not process, the Vex concluded. We are the variable you can't process, Thorne corrected. You saw our fleet, our ships, our weapons. You never saw us. And that is why you lost. That is why you will always lose to humanity. The Vex consciousness flickered, processing this new, terrifying data. The galaxy it was beginning to understand was not an equation. It was a story. And humanity had just written a new, unbelievable chapter. The Battle of the Maelstrom, as it came to be known, sent ripples across the galaxy. The unbeatable, infallible Vex had been defeated. Not by a greater power, not by a secret weapon, but by the one thing no computer could model. The beautiful, terrifying, and brilliant madness of the human spirit. The Terran remnant was no longer just a remnant. They were a force to be reckoned with. A people who fought not with logic, but with soul. And their legend, the legend of the species that weaponized chaos itself, was just beginning. If this story of humanity's triumph resonated with you, please subscribe to Apex Fleet HFY and like the video so we can continue to bring these epic tales to the stars. Until next time, stay defiant.